Hello, audiophiles, and welcome to another episode of Guitar and Pen, a songwriter's notebook. I'm Mark Will, author, songwriter, and publisher in permanent exile, currently based on the island of Taiwan. And I'm joined once again by my good friend Craig in Germany. Welcome back.
Hello there, Mark. How's it going?
I'm all right. Are you ready to Re-Roxy?
Any way you like, buddy. I'm all good. I'm ready to go.
All right, well, I guess we should explain what that means. We're going to revisit the music of Roxy Music. And as always, we want to see what we can learn from going deep into their catalog, this particular band. What can we, as songwriters, musicians, producers, and just regular old audiophiles, learn from Roxy Music? So today we begin part one of, what would it be, 8-part series where we go deep with each Roxy Music album.
Greatest hits or live albums here. We're just going straight
only studio albums.
Right?
Yes.
That might be the bonus edition if anyone's really interested.
Well, or we'll just put links in the show notes maybe if we refer to any of that stuff. But yeah, we'll focus on the studio albums today. We will start with their first album from 1972, I want to say. Does that sound right? Or is it 3?
Let's have a quick look. 72.
Early 70s.
72.
72. I was right.
16th of June, 1972 was released. I think that's the UK
There you
date.
go. Summer of 72.
We're not far off it now, actually.
Yeah.
The anniversary.
The anniversary, right? So before we start the slideshow, do you want to talk about your Roxy Music origin story? Like, how long have you been a fan, or how long have you listened to them carefully or enthusiastically?
The first Roxy Music record I remember buying was the Greatest Hits, funnily enough. And I think it's called Street Life. It was a double album, and I think it came out in 85. That kind of black cover with a kind of orangey blue kind of thing. I think with Ferry on the front or a band image on the front. If I'm getting vague memories of the record sleeve, but that was, and I think Jealous Guy might have come out at that time, 84, 85, something like that. That's the first record I can remember buying, Roxy Music.
That was a Ferry solo.
I think it's released
right?
as Roxy Music and Bryan Ferry, or vice versa.
Okay.
So you get Pajama Rama, but you also get Jealous Guy on it, so you're getting the full boona, as it were. And I mean, other than that, I can remember all those, maybe not in 1972 because I'd be about 3 right at that time or something, but I can remember seeing a lot of those early recordings of them on TV. But yeah, my first kind of music origin, or on from the radio, of course, that would be the other place where you would hear like Roxy Music. Or if you're getting into the kind of album side of thing, it would probably be the cassette that's passed around at school, or one of these, your friends, either older brothers or sisters, had a kind of record collection. You're like, oh, let's have a dabble in here. But I don't think my parents had any Roxy Music at home, not that I can remember. But Street Life, greatest hits for me. What about you?
Well, this is interesting because I really didn't listen to them at all until, I would say, 12 to 13 years ago, something like that. I was prejudiced against them because I held them responsible for like 80s new wave, which I wasn't a big fan of, I mean, of course, there are a couple of decent Duran Duran tracks, but overall,
I don't know, are we calling this new wave or new romantic, Mark? Which one?
Yes, new romantic, sure. All of them are direct, progeny
Human
of
League, Heaven 17.
Human League, I was just thinking of them.
Well,
yeah.
Soft Sail, I mean, they were all at.
David Sylvian solo.
Yeah, right.
He probably thought of himself as a Bryan
Although
Ferry,
they were
who
frightfully
had a
boring
band.
Japan, I find. Haven't listened to them in years, anyway.
Not
all
not really my
not
thing.
Much else behind.
So, I mean, I admit that I had like an animus against them there wasn't really a basis for that because I never listened to them. But 12 or 13 years ago, I think I started with For Your Pleasure, the second album, because I want to say it's because I read that Morrissey listed it listed it as one of his favorite albums, and it influenced the punks, Steve Jones.
Steve Jones, a
first
massive
band
Roxy
was
music, a
the
fanboy, right?
Strand. Yeah. So I listened to all of the albums straight through, and at that time, 12, 13 years ago, I think my favorite was Siren, but it'll be interesting when revisiting to see if that is still the case. So let's Re-Roxy. Let's see what we can learn from an exploration of their discography. Can you see the slides that I'm now sharing?
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so this series is called Re-Roxy, Guitar and Pen remakes, remodels Roxy music. So we're listening again to everything, and then we're going to take what we want from what we hear and try to learn and apply it to our own music or our own musical appreciation. How's that sound?
Right on. I'm right with you.
All right, so we start with the debut album, or as I call it, the debutante. And of course, the cover art is very important. I mean, every album features some sexy broad, right?
Or
some
plural in
model.
some cases, yeah.
Sexy broads, right. But
let's say they're distinctive.
Distinctive models, they're glam
Absolutely.
shots, I guess you could say. I mean,
Slightly
and this
risky,
is sometimes
but no more than that, I would say.
Right. I mean, by today's standards, it's tame, but back in the day, that was pretty daring, I guess, to have an album cover like this. If you're just listening and not watching, this is actually. Do you know who this is? The model that's featured on the
I did read it, but I can't
cover?
remember. You need to refresh my memory.
Well, it's Mick Jagger's sister-in-law.
Right.
This is or ex-sister-in-law. It's the wife or ex-wife of a certain Chris Jagger. So,
used to you, Mrs.
I don't know
Jagger,
how they
or
arranged that.
Mrs. Jagger.
Yeah. So a Jagger-in-law.
6 degrees of separation
Jagger by
here, Mark.
marriage.
I'm sure we could get there much quicker. You got it in one, right?
So this sets the precedent. Every album cover features, a beautiful representation of the female figure, or as you say, figures. So that's certainly a unique quality, and I guess it's reflective of their art school origin and heritage. Of course, Ferry, I guess, began life as a painter and an art teacher who was also interested in music. I mean, this is not new. A lot of British rock bands have art school backgrounds, but that's very much the case with Roxy music, as we'll see. A lot of attention is paid to the visual presentation, not just on stage, but in terms of packaging. Artwork is very important, as it should be, I would argue.
It definitely adds something to not just the visual image of the band, but these two things go together, the sound and the image. I think they're kind of when you think of one, you get the other, or at least
sound and vision, as we've discussed before. And of course, Bowie seems to have been a big influence on early Roxy music, so it all makes sense. Before we start, I thought it would be interesting to look at this. Now, I don't generally like Robert Christgau, but I think his review of this first album is at least entertaining, and there's some interesting phrases he uses which might prove to be relevant to our conversations. So I'll just read what he says. From the drag queen, Seek, on the cover. She's not actually a drag queen, it's a real woman, but apparently he didn't know that. From the drag queen, Seek, on the cover, to the fop finery in the centerfold, to the polished deformity, I've highlighted some of these phrases, of the music on the record, this celebrates the kind of artifice that could come to seem as unhealthy as the sheen on a piece of rotten meat. Right now, though, it's decorated with enough weird hooks to earn an A for side 1. Side 2 leans a little too heavily on the synthesizer, played by a balding, long-haired eunuch look-alike named Eno, without the saving grace of drums and bass line. So this is Robert Christgau writing for Cream magazine. That's a pretty interesting review, wouldn't you say? He always has these one-paragraph reviews.
I have to admit my ignorance, and I've never heard of Mr. Chris. How do you pronounce it? Christgau?
Christgau, yes. He's a New York-based. He wrote for the Village Voice. Yeah. He did the Paz and Jop poll. Maybe still does.
He just does sound frightfully pretentious. I think like
he's a prick.
Yeah, you could just the first few. I mean, if we're getting into that realm, it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the YouTube guy Fantano, his name is, and he does all this nonsense as well. I can't bear these fucking Muppets, if I'm being honest. It's just
and how many albums have you released, Mr. Christgau? Oh, that's right. You're not a musician or a singer or a songwriter or anything. You're just
a dick.
An asshole that has a record collection. Okay, yes. That said, though, is there anything in this review that catches your attention? I mean, I highlighted the phrases that I think are most interesting. Fop finery, that's pretty funny. Polished deformity, artifice, weird hooks, and his description of Eno is, I don't know. Some might find it offensive. I think it's pretty funny and not that far off, right? A balding, long-haired eunuch look-alike named Eno. Pretty funny. I think I lost your audio again and video.
There we go.
And now you're back.
It's all right. I think this will work itself out at the end. But the balding, long-haired eunuch look-alike, is that, did Bryan, set the way for, the Game of Thrones and the way eunuchs were portrayed? Would he modelled on this kind of the Bryan Eno version? I don't know.
Well, I guess he looks like a Targaryen with that.
That's true.
Blonde,
that funky
blonde hair.
He's right about the drums and bass line, though. The rhythm section and Roxy music are much under appreciated, I would say, or at least they don't get the front page news, as it were. So he's right.
Well, but he's saying without the saving grace of drums and bass line. I think he's dissing the rhythm section on side 2, which I agree that, for me, side 1 is more enjoyable and impressive and all that, but I don't agree with his complete dismissal of side 2, and as we'll see, I think there's some.
I think it's a very complete record for many different reasons, and it's you're getting a wide palette of the musical spectrum, I would say, but we're going to talk about that pretty soon.
Yeah. So we can just ignore Mr. Christgau, but I thought that was amusing enough to share.
At a party somewhere, he's just kind of talking about, nonsense and all that.
Right.
Come on, buddy.
But that is pretty funny, right? A balding, long-haired eunuch look-alike named Eno. Every time I mention Eno, your sound cuts out. Still no audio. Okay, there you are.
Yeah, no. Sorry about all this.
No, lost you again.
Great. Any joy now? No? Can you hear me? No? Nothing?
Still no audio. Video's okay.
Yeah, the audio here it says it's on. It says the mic's on. It's just been a pain in the ass. I can hear you. I can hear you. You can't hear me. What shall we do? When I go into you can't hear me now.
Still nothing. Oh. Okay, you're back.
This is a pain in the ass.
Oh, lost you again. Whatever you did right there caused me to lose you.
Not start again, but no, it's still recording.
Yeah, it's recording. The editor will cut out all the blank spaces anyway, so.
All right, sorry about this, man. I'm not going to use this device thing. I'll just go back to my old mixer, I think.
Okay.
Where were we? After you, mate.
Okay, well, all of this will be cut, and then I'll continue. So just
you can always send me the files, and I'll tidy it up a wee bit if you want.
Oh, I've got a system down now. It's really easy. Just tell the platform to cut out the pauses, and so the rest is no problem to clean up. But you think we're set now with the
As I said, my hands are up here. I'm really not touching anything. I'm just kind of on a bit of a wing and a prayer.
Let's just give it a 3, 2. Okay, and I thought would be interesting to include our first impressions of the re-listen, right? It had been many years since I had heard this first album in its entirety, so I said to you via WhatsApp, I got prog vibes from the first album, then read that a King Crimson alumnus produced it, and we'll talk about him in a minute, but I said I'd still call it art rock, though, and you said...
Agreed. Definitely.
You agreed.
Definitely. Well, I've kind of maybe changed my mind on that, but not entirely. But agreed. Definitely, art students acting out their rock and roll fantasies. But I don't think that's a bad thing. You know.
No.
If you're going to go to art school, you're well doing it right.
Yeah, I think that's apt. And to that, somewhere later, I replied, the wild, reckless, high energy performances are anything but prog. In fact, I would say they're proto-punk in some cases, but we'll look at the specifics a little bit later. So I also said Manzanera. Again, these are first impressions. I probably listened altogether 4 or 5 times this past week, so some of this may have changed, but this was my initial impression after listening again after all these years. Manzanera and Mackay are off the chain. Eno the eunuch provides gratuitous video game noises. Maybe that's not fair, but let's see what we think about that. And also I said Ferry's vocals are something of an acquired taste on this record, and I don't know if you can see what you said in response.
I think they work for that slightly bonkers art rock style, but the crooner's lurking in the background. There's a couple of tracks on here where, there is a crooner just waiting, dying to get out.
Lounge lizard.
Indeed.
And I said, yeah.
Can't wait to get the dinner jacket on, Mark.
Yes, with leopard skin print. Speaking of which, I've worn the most glam attire that I have. So
I have Gil Scott Heron today.
Right on. So I said, yeah, if Dracula were a crooner, and you said...
Pirate, because there'll be some video clips later that we might touch upon where,
He's got the eye patch.
Eye patch.
I think there's some debate about who was first to wear that, Bowie or Ferry.
Which eye?
I don't know. I don't know
the same
enough
eye
about the history.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We should ask village guy to do it. Not the village, the journal. He would know.
Village people?
No, the journal guy that you just showed us a moment ago. The guy whose name I've completely
Village Voice guy. Chris
the Village
Gow.
Voice
Yeah.
guy, yeah. He'd probably know.
Yeah. And he would tell us disdainfully, wouldn't he?
Absolutely.
All right, so this is our first impressions, but let's see what happens when we get deeper into it. So here is the band, circa 1972. We mentioned the leopard print and tiger skin. That was the fashion choice of a lot of these glam rockers, including Roxy Music. What can we say about this pick?
I think
they look like a lounge band for psychotics or something.
It looks like they've just let the drummer out for the day. He's never seen the sun before. It's pretty funny. But I think it looks fantastic. Just like all the different colours. There's kind of bright and shiny going on. There's a bit of kind of leather, a bit of suede, a bit of the tank top with the drummer. It's kind of, and it's very different for that time as well, because, as we might talk about later, the glam movement, or even getting into kind of krautrock era, kind of the fashions also tend to follow similar style. But if you look at bands like, I'd argue that Slade were one of the biggest glam bands.
Slade, yeah.
If you look at them aesthetically compared to Roxy Music here, there are some similarities, of course. Maybe the shoes that you can't really see in this photo, they might kind of, what were they called? Those big
clodhoppers,
right? Those massive
brothel creepers.
Those kind of big.
Well,
big
but they
Slade,
Slade also wore those like combat boots at one time, but then they kind of changed their look. So I'm not sure what era we're talking about. I always like Naughty's hat with the mirrors, the top hat with the mirrors.
Right, fantastic. Yeah,
that's a great look.
Two things it's Naughty: the voice and the hat.
Yeah. Actually, we were talking about him yesterday on the Rejoice podcast, but anyway, we'll save that for another time. So
Do they
I don't
look
know
like a
when I see
lounge band?
this
Maybe. I don't think so. I think they're
for outcasts and derelicts and I don't know outsiders, right? Like they're an art rock lounge band. They're a parody of a lounge band, I guess you could say, but it's
the
very
Roxy, like the nightclub, the Roxy.
yes,
Those
yes,
vibes.
and it's very 1970s. I mean, their progeny, as I referred to them earlier, they did something in the 80s that was not as interesting. They were, I don't know, they cleaned it up in a way, right? This is still pretty grungy and dirty and underground, right? But
Absolutely.
the 80s offspring of Roxy Music, I'm thinking of Duran Duran, Human League, and so on. They prettified it and
They look respectable.
yes, and corporate, I would say,
Mm.
right? Not
Go
as
watch the video for Oh Yeah, or the, what do you call it? The Top of the Pops performance version of Oh Yeah, and it looks as though they've walked out of a high street fashion chain kind of store. It's kind of, it's a bit grim. Song's great, but the look is questionable. This is much better.
There's something dangerous about this
Bit edgy as
transgressive,
well,
edgy that I guess we could say in the 80s, the followers, lost the edge and maybe played it safer. But I guess we can talk about that later as well. So who's in the band? Most importantly, I would say Mr. Bryan Ferry, the singer and keyboard player. He's on piano, organ, whatever.
Harmonica, maybe as well? Does he play harmonica?
Not on this album, maybe, but he probably did play that on occasion. But most importantly, and this is taken from like the disc of the first album, it says very clearly all songs written by Bryan Ferry. So I think that's important to remember. He was the songwriter. He wrote all 9 or 10 songs, depending on whether we're talking about the UK or the US release. And so, especially in the beginning, the first 2 albums, I guess you could say, it was his baby, his project. He wrote the songs. And so, as he said, he felt like he had a say in how everything would be orchestrated and arranged and presented visually, like on stage and on, in terms of packaging. So I think especially with the first 2 albums, he is the idea man as well as the front man.
His band.
That's what I would say. Yeah. I mean, the contributions of the others are very important, as we'll see, but he is the captain of the ship, we might say. And I think listening to this album again and studying it more carefully, I've really come to appreciate him as a songwriter, like, even if, I don't know, are there versions of just him playing keyboard and singing? For me, that's always the test of a great song. If you just sit down with a guitar and play it and sing it, is it good? Or, sit down at the piano and accompany yourself as you sing, or, someone
like
else could accompany you.
The song, eh? Like,
exactly. Or does it need all of the orchestration to make it listenable? I mean, has he ever done like an unplugged version of his songs?
I couldn't say yes or no, but he's always been with a band, either as Bryan Ferry, but he's always had like a huge ensemble, like 3-4 backing singers and the full thing, percussionists and whatnot. He likes to put on a show. But that's an interesting point. Might be interesting to go back and look and see if he has done any kind of stripped down versions.
Right.
Maybe he's not into that.
Yeah, I mean, but when he's demoing these songs, I'm sure, like when I was thinking about, okay, the process, he wrote these 9 or 10 songs. I guess he was just sitting at his piano and, playing and singing and putting things on tape, and then he takes it to the band and they flesh it out. But before he presents it to the band, it's got to be presentable. There's got to be something there as a song before the band would even be interested enough to do something with it, you know what I mean? So as a songwriter myself, that's what I'm thinking of when I'm listening. That's one of my focuses. But I do think especially with this band, the overall sound is inseparable from the idea of Roxy music. Like maybe that wouldn't work. Like just to hear him, we talked about him being a lounge lizard. Like if he's just at some nightclub singing while either he or someone else is playing an old grand piano, how would that sound? Like,
Empty,
I wonder.
perhaps, or not.
I don't know.
We should go. We should go investigate this week then.
Yeah. Maybe I'll find something for the show notes. All right. Well, another important piece of the puzzle is Andy McKay.
I'm going Mackay here.
Mackay, is that
right?
Is that what he says, or is that right? I don't know
actually, but it's kind of Scottish thing.
Okay. Is he a Scot?
I guess I don't know, but for me, I would say McKay, but
there's a famous doctor here. Well, he's long dead now, but he came to Taiwan as a missionary, and there are all these monuments to him all over Taipei because he set up hospitals, and he's famous for removing 100 rotten teeth in an hour or something like that. And he's Dr. Mackay, and I think it's spelled the same way, so you may be right. But I don't know. Yanks probably tend to see that as McKay, but let's go with Mackay.
Oh, good.
Sax man extraordinaire, and also very important, he introduces the oboe to rock. Had anyone used that before? I mean, maybe some prog group had tried it, but
Ian Anderson
some of those
with the flute, of course,
right? Jethro Tull, and then some of those Wall of Sound productions of Phil Spector
absolutely. They're full of it, But the more the merrier, I think Phil Spector's motto was.
Right, but I don't think we ever had the oboe as a featured solo instrument quite like this, and that is something that I also focused on as I listened this time. I mean, there are some amazing oboe passages. He's a brilliant musician, and and man, I really love the tone of it. Maybe more than the sax in some cases, right? Depends on the song, but yeah, great stuff. And he helped out with backing vocals. And I found this quote, which I thought was interesting. According to that great source, Wikipedia, CIA-friendly Wikipedia, Mackay said, "We certainly didn't invent eclecticism." I love that. But we did say and prove that rock and roll could accommodate, well, anything, really. Now, I would argue that the Beatles proved that before, but there is something Beatlesque about their eclecticism, like their willingness to try anything and throw everything together and try different instrumentation.
To make it sound good, that's the trick.
Yeah. Yeah, tasteful eclecticism, maybe we can say. All right, and then we've got this very underrated Axeman, Phil Manzanera. Damn, he's a beast, man. He's amazing. What a great player. Tasteful, too, right?
Very tasteful. I watched one of his interviews from that In Your Ear podcast the other day. I think it was during my lunch break. I watched it. It was like 45 minutes or something, and he's such a pleasant man as well too. He's just like very humble and really chatty and kind of none of the airs and graces about. I mean, obviously he's a rock star, right? So there's a certain kind of element of that in it, but just to listen to him talk about his upbringing and his mother was Colombian and he lived in Cuba and all sorts of other kind of mad things. And he didn't go to art school, but he was kind of
seems like a nice guy, based on what I've seen of him.
And a fun guitar player as well.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this when you were doing your research, but apparently he was not their first choice. Like,
yes, right.
There were some other guys. Okay, so yeah. I'm sure you know more about it
And
than I
how,
do,
how
but
he got
what
into
I saw.
production was he was just told, "Oh, Eno will show you how to do it." Right? So I think Brian Ferry asked him, "Do you want to come and mix this record for us?" And he's like, "I have no idea how to do it." He's like, "It's all right, Brian will show you."
Oh, really?
That was his
Okay.
kind of introduction into production and that kind of stuff.
Well, the story I read about how he got the gig was that he was originally a roadie, and then they had this guy that actually played on um, one of the Pink Floyd records, like when they were transitioning from Sid Barrett to David Gilmour. This
Mm-hmm.
guy filled in. He was like one of the original Roxy guitarists, and then he had an argument with Ferry or the drummer or somebody and left. He just quit, and we've never heard of him again, right? That was probably a mistake on his part. Then the roadie, meanwhile, had been learning all the songs, and so
Yes.
when the band found out about that, they're like, "Oh
Like,
yes,
this
you're
guy's a
you're
genius.
you're our
He can play
guy."
all the songs.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's an incredible story.
Mm.
Apparently, Manzanere's older brother was a friend of Gilmour, and I think he's become a friend of
They went to
Gilmour
a
as
very
well.
posh school, Dulwich School, boarding school.
Oh, okay. So
And anyway,
he's comes from money, or
yeah, he must do.
hmm. Well, whatever
I won't hold that
whatever the
against him.
case. No, I mean, as you say, he seems like a nice guy, and he is a beast. Yeah, and Mackay too, man. They're both fantastic musicians. Speaking of which, we've got the drummer Paul Thompson, who responded to an ad, I think, in Melody Maker, saying wonder drummer wanted for an avant rock group. Avant-garde, avant rock.
Mm.
That's interesting that they were describing themselves as such before they even like came together. So this guy showed up, and I mean, as a drummer yourself, what do you think about his skills?
Fantastic. I mean, having been listening to the album like yourself most over the last week or 10 days, and a little bit of other Roxy in between, just to kind of bridge the gaps a little bit.
Right.
The playing on the early stuff, he's just hits it really hard as well. I mean, he's not messing about, right? But it sounds good. It's just like a proper drummer. I think he's from Newcastle, like Ferry, I believe.
Okay.
He's from the northeast of England, I believe, Paul Thompson, and he
What?
couldn't play at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever nonsense it was they were doing because he had a heart attack or something. I don't know if he's still around or not, but I believe he was in a bit of kind of ill health. But the early stuff here he did with Roxy Music's fantastic. It's just
Yeah.
the first few songs on the album as well is really, it has that
Driving.
kick to it. You're driving.
Yes,
there we
yeah,
go,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Super.
So I mean, he's a great rock drummer, but do you also detect like other influences, maybe a little bit of jazz?
There's
Like
definitely
he's
nuance
probably
in his
been
playing
listening.
as well.
Yeah, he's been listening to,
Absolutely.
maybe I don't know what Miles
Might have been big
Davis
band stuff at the time, or
and that too.
much like
Yeah,
Bonham did as
yeah,
well, had an admiration for those
right.
guys in that style.
Yeah, very, very solid. I
Swing
really
to it in some
like
ways.
this guy. He's got it. He swings too. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
Paul
rock
Thompson.
on Paul Thompson, man.
Yeah, even with that smoky eye.
And that's quite a fetching outfit. You got to have balls to do that, man. So, a tip of the hat to him.
All right, and then on this first album, now I don't know if you encountered this in your research, but apparently
yeah.
Roxy Music never had like a full-time bassist. They would just go record to record. Okay, who's going to play bass on this, right? At one point they had John Wetton was he in King Crimson? I know he played with Asia and some of those other prog bands, right? He played on something. We'll find out what maybe in a later episode, but they didn't have a consistent bassist. So on this first album, the guy that you hear on the record is named Graham Simpson, and he actually founded the band with Ferry, apparently. So, in the early days, he was very important. He was a founding member and bassist of Roxy Music. I'll just read this slide here because it's interesting. On their first album, 1972, his bass notes made distinctive contributions to the tracks Ladytron and Chance Meeting. I don't know why it singled out those two. I think he sounds pretty good throughout, but whatever, maybe he does something special on those. I didn't hear that. Then it says, however, around the time of the album's release, Simpson, who was suffering from depression following the death of his mother from cancer, was given an open-ended choice to remain with or take a hiatus from the band by Ferry. Simpson chose to leave the band and never return to the lineup. So he just said no thank you to the rock star lifestyle. He used his band royalties to travel the world learning about different cultures and religions, particularly Sufism, returning to London in 1982. That's a great story, isn't it? So he's a founding member of one of the most successful, innovative rock bands in history, influential rock bands in history. He plays on one album. He gets some royalties for, you know, his performance, his contributions, and he walks away from it, and he travels the world and, you know, studies different cultures and religions. Maybe he became a Sufi himself, you know.
Found his inner peace, as it were.
Yeah, and he was fine with it. Maybe that's characteristic of bass players, right? Bill Wyman just walks away after however many years. Of course, he did a lot more.
Although that's Roger Waters doesn't really do walking away. So.
Yeah, he left the band, but still carried on in one way or another. Yeah. But I just think that's a nice story. Okay, and then of course we've got Brian Eno on the beep boop. So he's in charge of the synthesizers, tape effects, sound effects, I guess, and sometimes he sings
wizardry.
Yeah.
Or at least at that time it sounds like wizard.
Right. We'll talk about how important that contribution was, or whether, as, you know, was my first impression, he contributed, you know, gratuitous video game noises. Is it an essential ingredient? Does it add something, or does it detract? Maybe we'll have to consider that case by case, or rather track by track on a case by case basis. And then finally, the last ingredient, although not a band member, but I would say, you know, Peter Sinfield of King Crimson fame as producer had an effect. You know, I think that prog element that I heard on the first listen, maybe that was partly due to his influence. How could it not be, right? I mean, Ferry was a fan of King Crimson. I read he even auditioned for King Crimson, and though they said, nah, you're not really, your vocal style doesn't really match our band, but we love your songs and you're a talented singer. So I think they kind of helped put him in touch with Sinfield and helped them get that contract with, what was it, Island Records?
Yeah, Chris Thomas was a lot to do with Roxy Music, either as a producer later on, maybe?
That was later, yeah. I read that. But on this first album, you know, they had a guy who worked with King Crimson, so you have to expect there's going to be some prog elements in the final mix, which I think there are, however you want to say it. So let's get into the track by track. Let's start with side A. And of course, it opens with one of the great opening tracks of any album, I would argue, Remake, Remodel. Anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, quite a bit. PL593H is a great bit of this song as well, because when Ferry was going to the studio, as rock and roll people do, or he was out and about gallivanting, doing whatever it was, and he saw a good-looking woman in this car. He was going one way and she was going the other, or he was in a car next to her or something, and the registration of the car she was in was CPL593H, which is great. You know, I have to put that in a song, and there we go, voila. I could talk myself to death, but I believe I'd only waste my breath out, you know. Yes.
Great lyrics, and hopefully we won't talk ourselves to death on this pod.
I wrote a couple of notes down. I wrote something to just put kind of pointers, but there's a great German TV performance version of it. It's superb. But I think there's also a few other of that time great live performances of the band. You really see them stretching their legs and really kind of, you know, giving it, really getting into, you know. I wrote down...
And it's quite
Oh, please,
I
go.
was just going to say it's quite different from the record. I
Yeah.
heard this performance on German TV. I'll put that in the show notes because it's very different from what you hear on the record. So it's very, very nice.
To kind of paraphrase my notes, there's not a lot of them, but I wrote down chaotic brilliance. I guess I'm talking about the live performance here, but I think arguably the song could be described like that as well. And I also wrote down that, was it really a smart move to put this as the first track on the album? So if we take two parts of it, it really showcases the band's fantastic musicianship and originality. But on the other hand, were or are people ready for that? You know, what they heard. So I guess that was my
Oh,
contribution.
I would argue that it's the perfect opening track. You know, it's like a punch in the face. It starts with that. What is it? A sample of a cocktail party? That's
Well,
why I've
yeah,
got
maybe
this
not for the
image
first
here.
thing we hear that exactly. You get this kind of abstract beginning, but yeah, it's either at a party of some kind where you hear people mingling in the background and some background noise. I'd actually written that it was arguably the strongest track on the album. That's what I actually put in my notes.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, you certainly could make that argument. I mean, it's very simple in its composition. It's just like that ascending pattern, I guess, repeated over and over, but the energy level is off the charts. I mean, every part of the band is going full throttle, you know, and it's just screaming. I think it's fantastic. The mini solos at the end, you
Right.
know, or near
When
the
everyone
end,
gets a turn.
everyone gets a turn, right? So the whole band is showcased. I guess the order is drums, bass, and the
Bass.
bassist quotes or alludes to "Day Tripper" by the Beatles, right? Then you've got Eno's "Beep Boop." Then saxophone. I think that is like an allusion to Wagner, Ride of the Valkyries. Then you've got Manzanera playing I don't know, Dwayne Eddy or Eddie Cochran guitar
Mm.
figure. Then comes banging Ferry banging on the piano, and then back to drums. So it is a showcase for the band. And then after all those ascending lines and the solos, you get a descending line, right? And it also slows down, 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 and then the drums slowly stop, and then you get that. I think that's a pretty effective beat boop at the end of this. Whatever Eno does, it's a
Mm.
nice ending to this song.
I mean, it's a really well constructed song, quite imaginatively put together. You know, how can we make this sound a bit different to like I've got ideas for a verse and a chorus and maybe a bridge, but how can we take that to the next level, or what can we make it sound as unique as that? And it sounds as good today as it did. Well, I wasn't around really then, but you know, it sounds great today as we're listening to
Yeah, and let's shout a license plate for the chorus.
it. I know it's just completely bonkers. I mean, like the album itself, I think a lot of this shouldn't work, but the genius is it does. Maybe not particularly in this song, but you know, as an album, as a whole thing, I'm giving away spoilers here on my what are we going to take away from this? But as an opening track, it's fantastic, and you can see where a lot of bands were influenced by this. You know, you take the record home, or you're in the record shop, you hear it, and you think the WTF moment. You have to get home, buy the record, play it, and you're just like, wow.
This title is interesting too. Remake, remodel. You know, we talk about, at least in the States, we talk about the make and model of a car.
Right.
So we're already thinking, is this about a car? Or, you know, but it's not make model, it's remake, remodel, which of course has that double or triple meaning, right? Like they're remaking what are they remaking and remodeling? Rock music. You know,
Yeah.
it's not rock music, it's Roxy music. It's
Mm.
kind of like rock music, you know, ROCKSY or ROXY. I mean, Ferry, I'm sure that's coming mostly from Ferry, right? Like he's the idea man. So from the very beginning, it's like he already had the idea of remaking, remodeling popular music, rock music, or whatever, art rock, prog rock, whatever he was listening to at the time. He's going to do something, he's going to twist it and make it into something new with all of his avant-garde art school,
his big box of tricks,
fantasies. Yeah, his box of tricks, right. And I guess you could say, I don't know, the precedents are Bowie, Velvet Underground, and also prog guys like King Crimson or whatever. But I don't know, I would argue they're doing something different. I mean, this doesn't sound like Velvet Underground at all. It's much more,
it's
musical.
A bit more like for choice of a better word, right? Exactly. It's going to say
musically adept.
Yeah. It's got depth to it as well.
I mean, probably the closest analogy is Bowie, but even, I would say, they're probably closer to Bowie than VU or King Crimson or the other prog acts. But they're doing something different. For one thing, Bowie is basically a solo artist, even though he has the Spiders from Mars, and he doesn't have like crazy saxophone and oboe and his band. What's that?
And the Eunuch, he doesn't have one of them.
And maybe the Eunuch, yeah, right. Well, later he hooked up with the Eunuch, didn't he? But but I'm just thinking, like, the Spiders from Mars, the Ronson and those guys, they're more straight ahead rock and roll. I'd say they're not as versatile as the musicians in Roxy.
At least that's the way it comes across.
Yeah.
In the music.
So obviously this first track is very important. It's
a banger, I believe the kids call it, man.
It's
the kids
a banger,
yes.
But also it's just like, if you're listening to the complete discography from start to finish, this is the first statement we get from
Definitely
Roxy music.
Statement.
And yeah, maybe it's like descriptive of their whole history and discography.
Perhaps.
Yeah, their manifesto, to use, one of their later album titles. But yeah, it's a manifesto of sorts, a manifesto in sound. It's like, here we are, and this is what we're doing, so buckle up. All right, so track 2 is called Ladytron. Did you know there's actually a band called Ladytron? Apparently I snatched their logo, and that's a picture of them. Didn't listen, don't think I want to, but
guy's got an interesting moustache thing going on. I don't have my glasses on, but it looks like a bit of an interesting trouser he's got.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. I'm sure they're great.
Well, anyway, this is more recent progeny. Like, I think they're current, so it wasn't just the 80s that felt the influence of this band. So here on this track, Mackay takes out his oboe for the first time, and I think this is where I first got the prog vibes, Sounds like something on a Yes album or something, maybe. Parts of it.
To kind of summarize what you've just said there, I've written long, weird intro, right? So with the oboe and synths playing off one another.
Yes.
If you wanted me to summarize that kind of feeling of prog
synth,
there.
Yeah. Prog with some Eno Eunuch weirdness, which he described as lunacy, because apparently Ferry said, I want you to give me something that sounds like the moon. Yeah, so that's why I've put that on this slide. So he said, okay, you want lunacy? Here it is. And that's what you get on the record. I also hear castanets, I think. They might not be the handheld, but like the stick that you can shake.
There's definitely that sound or ish of that sound going on.
Isn't that what it is? I think so.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. And then these great lines, I'll use you and I'll confuse you. I'll use you and I'll confuse you and then I'll lose you. Still you won't suspect me. Damn, those are great lyrics. I mean, I've highlighted my favorites on each song.
This is probably one of the
that's fantastic.
Other well-known songs off the album as well. Like, people will talk about influence or where were they when they heard it for the first time? You know, it's one of those Roxy tunes, or at least, you know, from this era. The what's his name? Andy Mackay sporting an interesting jacket in this picture we can see here as well. Like, it's kind of it's all a bit eclectic. But yeah, interesting. Did you find out what the song's about? Like the
I mean, I guess that's his coinage. The title's interesting, right? It's not lady. It's not lady lay. It's not my girlfriend. It's Lady Tron. It sounds kind of weird and sci-fi and spacey.
Exactly. Yeah, I was thinking there's a kind of weird futuristic thing going on there, or elements of
like some kind of female cyborg, or
I don't know, a futuristic sex doll of some kind.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my overactive imagination, much like theirs, but they've done slightly better of it.
I mean, sci-fi was an influence on Bowie too, 2001 and all that. So yeah, and if his idea was, let's try to make this sound like the moon, he probably had some kind of interstellar concept in mind. So the queen that's mentioned in the lyrics is maybe some kind of space queen. Listeners can decide for themselves. All right, so track 3, I would say this is a fairly well-known song from the first record as well. If There Is Something. It was covered later, many years later, by David Bowie's Tin Machine. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, I think I'd read that.
It's totally different, and not necessarily in a good way, but it showcases his guitarist at the time, Reeves Gabrels, I think his name is. You know that guy? He played
features in that last documentary, you and I. Remember I sent you the link for it?
Right.
The one he features a bit in that.
Yeah, he's an interesting guitar player, but nothing like Manzanera. It's not like soulful, groove oriented. He's like a trickster, like a technician with whammy bar trickery and harmonics and tapping and shredding. So it's different style. I'm not saying it's bad. It's kind of interesting, but the original I like better. And compositionally, I thought, so you've got the first track, which is pretty simple. It's just like a repetition of that ascending line pretty much throughout. But this song has what I would describe as 3 movements, right? In the beginning, we think we're listening to like a country song, a honky-tonk song.
That's exactly how it begins, yeah. You've got that written all over it, I would say.
Yeah. And then, towards the middle, maybe, I don't know, just before the 2-minute mark or around the minute 30-second mark, it becomes like a torch song with this romantic crooning and crazy vibrato. I mean, the vibrato in Ferry's voice is almost too much, right? This is what I meant when I said it's an acquired taste. When you first hear it, it's like, what? The tremolo, the shaking is so over the top.
Well, if I can add a couple of things that I'd written down, just more or less with you on those first 2 points there. For some reason I'd written, there's a prog-ish solo going on, but maybe that's the torch thing you're mentioning here. But what I'd written down was, I think the more I'd listened to it, the more I appreciated it. The Ferry sings like his life that was depending on it. I got that kind of vibe from it. The more, maybe the first time you hear it, it's a bit, the WTF moment. Now kind of, it's a bit maybe overwhelming, or just, I don't know, you're just like, all right, this. But whatever headspace I was in when I was, I got that feeling from it that he was singing like he meant it.
Yeah, I would do anything for you. I would climb mountains. I would swim all the oceans blue. I would walk 1,000 miles, reveal my secrets, more than enough for me to share. I would put roses round our door, sit in the garden, growing potatoes by the score. How many pop songs talk about growing potatoes? And you're right, it's like very emotional. It's urgent and passionate. It's just
Heartfelt,
from
you know.
yeah. So I'm not, I'm not dissing it or hating on it. It's just from a technical standpoint. You just have to say that is a lot of vibrato, but okay, and it works. It's not like, but I can also see how people hearing that for the first time might find it off-putting, right? Or an acquired taste. I mean, after you listen a few times, it's like, yeah, it's perfect. That's what this needed. But it's
can be a bit jarring maybe at the beginning, you know.
It's jarring, yeah. But I think that's kind of the point, right? Like even that transition from honky tonk, it's almost like a parody song. It's like a I don't know, a parody of a country or honky tonk song, and then all of a sudden it gets real, as you say. It's like he's singing like his life depends on it, and then it transitions to what I would call the third movement, which I didn't know how to describe other than to say it's the "when you were young" movement, because that's the refrain that they keep repeating. But it's almost like a dirge. It's like subdued, almost prayerful, with the background vocals, and so it becomes something else again, something else entirely different. So it's a wild ride, starting out with that country honky tonk vibe, then moving into this very passionate, urgent torch song, and then kind of tapering off into a almost prayerful, I don't know what, chorale, like it's a it's like choral music,
This might be interesting to hear the stripped down version of it as well, right? When you hear it.
Yeah, how would that sound if he's just at the piano?
But great song.
And the Bowie version, like the three movements are not as distinctive, because it's just his Tin Machine.
Is this first or second Tin Machine album? I can't
Second. Yeah.
Because the cover looks a bit. I might have to go back and listen to that. Tin Machine were also a bit of an acquired taste. Fair to say.
I think they're wrongly maligned. They're not as horrible as
I think everyone was expecting to sound like, well, something different, and it was not to be.
I mean, I always liked that Under the God song. Like when it first came out, I remember liking that. So
we digress.
Yeah,
but this is definitely worth checking out if you've never, even if you just put it on shuffle. The album, you just put it on shuffle and you pick this one first, you'll get something really from it. The rhythm section's definitely one point in this tune as well.
Yep,
has to be said.
All right, so track 4 only appears on the US version, and I've got
you put it in here. Fine, okay.
I've got the upside down US flag because I choose not to turn it right side up, and yes, I am making a statement, so take that however you will, dear audiophiles. But of course, track 4 on the US release only is Virginia Plain, which was the single that kind of broke them, I guess, And so here is, on this slide, I've got a picture of the single and the painting, which I think was a watercolor, that inspired the song. So Bryan Ferry, a cigarette pack, Virginia, like Virginia Slims or whatever, tobacco made in Virginia, but plain, I guess, meaning what? Unfiltered, or I don't know, just a plain Virginia cigarette. That's what it means. The lyrics, I mean, I'm not going to try to interpret them. I don't really think they're that important. It's almost like Tutti Frutti or something. But another driving proto-punk kind of song, not very complicated, kind of doesn't, I mean, it's very simple, almost to the point that it's, I don't know, does it get monotonous? Is this song overrated? Does it belong on this album? Would you not include it?
Well, interesting questions. Here's what I think. I think this is a classic. Now, from what I understood, this song was actually even recorded a month after, or was it even released a month after the album was?
Yeah. The album was already out in the UK.
Right. So this was just, this to me sounds like they went through the songs that Bryan Ferry's had, and either the producer, the manager, the record company, someone's went, you know what, we need a single from this album, and this sounds like it. It's got that hook, Well, if I can use a bit of rhyming, you've got that hook to it, you've got the look, and you've got Bryan, in the Top of the Pops version anyway, dressed like some kind of space pirate thing going on, and Ferry's also looking a bit kind of weird and wonderful. The drummer's dressed as Tarzan with that kind of thing that we saw earlier. But plus, if we take the kind of pop elements of the song, it's less than 3 minutes. It's like 2:50 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then on top of that, I just love the unusual, or at least I think it's slightly unusual structure of the song. You get the solo first, you get the middle eight bridge at the end, another kind of, it's not as straightforward as you would get a verse, chorus, solo, verse out kind of thing.
Right.
It's that kind of slightly simplistic but genius way of doing things to make it sound unique.
Well, you can hear how it would have been influential to those punks, who were probably 12 or 13 years old when this came out, right? And by the time
after about 30 seconds, you're like, all right, here we go.
Right,
He's not messing about here.
But how about Eno's contribution to this? Does do his contributions make the song better, or are they a distraction? I kind of like that figure he plays during the breakdown.
I don't think they're a distraction. I think they just add to the general good vibe weirdness of it all, There's that kind of plinky plonky thing going on in the back. Ding, 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 ding. You can hear a lot of really kind of unusual sounds going on, but it doesn't make this song any less, in my opinion. I think it just adds to the vibrancy of the song itself. It's part of a kind of general organized chaos, as I used earlier. There's a lot of stuff going on in this song in under 3 minutes. When you see the live performance, especially the Top of the Pops one, they're really going for it. I think that might have been definitely their first Top of the Pops, but maybe even their first live TV performance, or live, whatever, the BBC kind of pretending they're live. But I don't know if you've seen it all the way to the end, but Ferry gives you the wink at the end as well when he ends on Virginia Plain.
I did see that. Yeah.
He's got it, man. He's got the whole Jagger, Bowie, McCartney, the whole classic frontman thing. They know how they got you right in the back pocket right there, That's a classic.
And I think, we don't even get the title of the song until the very end there, right? That's the only mention of Virginia Plain.
Work, but it just does. I think it's a great song. So for me, I think it's much, as I mentioned earlier there, without repeating myself, but the producer or the manager or someone's went, we need a single for it, and what have you got lying around, or why didn't this make the record, or whatever conversations were had. But I think they've dug a bit and they went, all right, what can we do with this? And there you go. It's probably come quite quickly if you go by
here
those
again,
dates.
We've got something signifying a beautiful woman. It's a cigarette. It's Virginia, which is also a female's name, right?
Just like sweet.
Could be that. But just as in remake, remodel, we've got the CPL 5938. Or 5938 rather, which is, as we said, the license plate on a car, but it's the woman that was driving that car that is our focus, right? So who's Virginia Plain? You think when you hear the title, you think it's a female, right? Later you find, it's a cigarette, but it's also maybe some girl named Virginia Plain, and so all of this. Were they not
called Virginia Slims? Were they not the name of the cigarettes?
Yeah, Virginia Slims, or so that's a brand, right?
Maybe it's just a play on words.
Well, but I think I don't know. He maybe there's like a plain, unfiltered cigarette made in Virginia. I don't know. I mean, it's not a brand I'm familiar with, and that kind of weirdness or strangeness is part of its charm, I suppose. But I'm just thinking of how everything, in a way, relates back to the initial image on the cover, right? Like, okay, we've got all these weird, complicated ways of referring to whatever it is we're singing about, but ultimately it's about female beauty and female allure and, the feminine sexuality, right? Yeah. I mean, so you're going back to the roots of rock and roll. They say rock and roll was a slang term for like hit it and quit it or something like that. So that he's remaking, remodeling,
Mm.
all of that, the whole genre, um, in an interesting, charming way, I would say. All right, so last track on side A is 2HB, and no, it's not about a pencil.
Man, you've read my mind. You're going to steal all my jokes here,
Oh,
right?
sorry.
But luckily, I didn't write that one. You beat me to it. Fair enough.
Well,
Why
what
did we
is it
think?
about? What's 2HB?
Yeah, I mean, kids, anyone think them? What are these two old guys talking about? Well, pencils have different grades of lead in them, I suppose, or darkness of it. 2H,
Yeah,
2HB,
yeah.
HB, H. I can't really remember them all. Maybe that was them all there with just now. I believe this is a tribute to Humphrey Bogart,
Think you're right.
cinematic icon, as we might find. Bryan Ferry had a bit of a thing about that kind of cinematic look as well, or going back to the halcyon days of the 30s, 40s, 50s, the golden era of Hollywood and that kind of thing, you know, there's certain romanticism
Hmm.
that goes along with that. I'll tell you what I think, what I wrote down actually, I find this song a bit jarring at the beginning. The drums in particular, I don't know, it just kind of annoyed me the first few times I heard it. I went back to listen to it. I was
Hmm.
like, it's kind of annoying me. But the more I listened to it, the more it made sense. I just kind of got into it. The drums seem to be following the piano line, so there's that kind of hook thing, you know,
Hmm.
that pattern. I'm not doing drums very well here, but anyone who cares. But otherwise, it's musically quite relaxing and mellow. I wrote it's quite dreamy, which I thought was maybe the whole point of the song, to have that reflection on your icon or your someone you hold in great regard.
Hmm.
Don't know what you think about Mark. Well, tell us what
Well,
you think.
the "Here's looking at you, kid" refrain is the giveaway, right? Like
Yeah,
that's the famous line from Casablanca.
Casablanca.
So, of course, when you realize that, oh, HB Humphrey Bogart. Oh, to Humphrey Bogart, it's a tribute. But yeah, like you, it's not my favorite track, but it kind of
It grew on me
grew
the more
grew
I
on
listened
me.
to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
And
was a bit like,
it's a it's
but yeah,
yeah, but it shows their eclecticism,
bit of versatility there as
diverse
well, you know.
their
Yeah. Mm.
versatility and diversity and all of that. So, it works. I think the vocal performance is nice. It's fun. I found myself singing along with it. Here's looking at you, kid. And lyrically, this is fantastic. Words don't express my meaning. Notes could not spell out the score, but finding, not keeping's the lesson. Wow, that's beautiful.
Mm.
It's like you have to be willing to let go. What a brilliant insight. What a mature, you know, uh, wise thing to have gleaned from this trashy Hollywood movie, right? Which,
Mm.
some people would object to my calling it that, but
Or the Maltese Falcon or the African Queen or many of the other pictures he made.
yeah.
But, we'll take it for what it's worth.
But, yeah, oh, the other thing is, clearly these art school graduates or dropouts, whatever they are, have an interest in cinema. So that
Mm.
I guess this is the first one with like an overt cinematic reference or allusion, but as we'll see, there's more of that to come on side B. And so that had already, there were precedents to that, of course. Bowie with 2001, and also I think he was influenced by the iconography of A Clockwork Orange, right? So he was interested in mostly Kubrick, right?
Mm.
Stanley Kubrick. Did I say Kubrick? Kubrick. But this is like, I can't think of another popular song referencing the golden age of Hollywood. Can you? Like, maybe Prince did it later,
Oh, I mean, we
but
might even get into that whole kind of 70s vibe there. I'm sure there's Goodbye Norma Jean,
right.
or,
Yes,
I'm
true.
sure there's probably a whole load of other artists who were around at the time who also had a similar
Yeah.
interest in the matinee stars or the movie stars of the day or the big screen, whatever it was, all those kind of things that took you to another place, from the golden days of cinema.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of side A. Let's go to side B. Let's flip this record over, even though we've been listening on Spotify and don't do that anymore. But
Nope.
Imagine, if you will, isn't it amazing how technology, with all its so-called improvements, has managed to make the music listening experience worse,
Incredibly sterile,
like we're listening out of our phones or computers with the shitty speakers. Of course, put on the headphones, it's a little bit better, but we're making things worse.
No, we're worse off. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so much for progress.
Well, I think this album might have been a double sleeve.
Oh,
I think
yeah?
if you open it up, you had the artwork in it. So, I mean, these things were made like that for a reason, yeah, to enjoy the whole experience. And see funky pictures like we saw the band earlier, that's... Then you would read the sleeve notes. Who was the producer? What does the producer do? You got all these kind of questions, you're just...
Yeah. And
what is a mixer? What does that guy do? What's an engineer?
You've got liner notes to explain things to you, right? Or offer you insights. And I mean, that's why things that I've discovered more recently or listened to more recently, I always have to look up song titles and sequencing. Before, I had mostly cassettes rather than LPs, although I did have some LPs, but mostly cassettes and later CDs. But as I'm listening, I'm always looking at the song titles. So it's like once I've listened to an album, I've memorized it. Now you're listening on Spotify or whatever, you're looking at Wikipedia or you're looking at
a fart in the wind.
Yeah, it's
we're missing the mark.
It's a very different listening experience. All right, so continuing with that cinematic vibe, we've got a song called The Bob, which is called a medley, subtitle in parentheses there, The Bob, in parentheses, medley. And Bob is Battle of Britain, in case people didn't know that. I've put the logo of my shitty label Symphonic because I think this, not to advertise them, but because I think this has a symphonic quality, it's almost like a noise symphony. They call it a medley, but to me it's more symphonic. There's even I think there's a timpani at the end, which, it sounds like it could be, parts of it could be a film score, and there's sound effects of bomber planes going down or something like that.
I mean, much like The Wall or anything Roger Waters or anyone from that similar generation has talked about their post-war experiences. Here we're getting it in a slightly kind of avant-garde way, if I'm being polite. I don't really like this song very much. It's
not my favorite.
It doesn't do a great deal for me, if I'm being honest.
Although, okay, so yes, I noticed that Pink Floyd kind of vibe. There's some sampling, but it's more, Pink Floyd is kind of idiosyncratic. This is similar, but it's more art rock, I guess, rather than whatever Pink Floyd is, if we can say that. But also, the one thing that is interesting is the kind of doom rock quality of, I don't know, the second movement or whatever it is. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like really heavy. It's almost like black. At one point, they almost sound like Black Sabbath or something. It's pretty crazy. For a minute, it's really heavy sludge, doom rock or stoner rock. Maybe something like
I don't know, I put it down as, or on my note here anyway, avant-garde experimentation vibe. I don't know, it's not great English, but
it is
that. It seemed to work.
But
for
I'm
me.
thinking of the heaviness of Bowie's "The Man Who Sold the World," that record. There's kind of something like that, but even more extreme, more doom laden, more.
Maybe that's to encapsulate the whole Battle of Britain thing,
I guess. I
the
guess.
impending doom.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be
So
honest, I listened to it a few times and I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, fair enough. And then I was just like,
yeah, we appreciate the experiment, guys,
yeah.
but we're gonna move on to track two,
I actually
which
wrote, I
is
think they know what it is, but do we? It definitely has prog overtones. That's what I wrote in my final bit of
that's
the
the
note.
Bob. Okay. All right. Well, another cinematic allusion on track two, which is called Chance Meeting. This is apparently inspired by a film called Brief Encounter, which
Terrible
is a
film.
really
Oh, yeah, it's shite. Yeah.
oh, I never saw it, but
It's a kind
it
of
is
British
Noel
classic. I think everyone's probably,
Noel
anyone out
Coward.
there. Yeah.
It's a Noel Coward who's famous playwright, but um, the vocal's interesting. Again, kind of plaintive and pleading. There's like a noise rock element in parts with some
I think the last
discordant
minute of the song, it kind of
guitar.
takes you into, as I wrote in my note, as I look at it here, into near Earth orbit. The last minute of the song, it kind of starts one way and ends another. But I don't know, this is where you get to hear Bryan and Ferry get to croon at least a bit for the first time, or the first kind of meaningful time anyway, I think. And there might be more of this to come later on. Maybe not in this album, but in the discography. Or just his musical influences, He was kind of what he
So
grew
to
up listening
recap
to.
on side B, the first you're not really feeling the first two tracks.
No, they're okay, but
Right.
nothing more than that. They don't really do anything for me memorable. Nothing memorable in it for me. They're okay. I'm trying to not say it is what it is, but yeah, it didn't leave me feel empty or anything like that. But I'm just kind of like, yeah,
Right.
okay, I can see where they fit in the bigger picture of
Right.
this as an album, and even if you want to call it all these different elements that they're taking it from for that Roxy music sound, fine, it fits in there. But would I put it on when I'm making the dinner,
Right.
taking the dog for a walk,
Right. Not
doing your normal
standout tracks.
things as you do? I'm kind of
Right.
like, not really. It's left me.
I'm interested in what you're saying about the movie though. So this is everyone has seen this. I haven't. I mean, it's not popular in the
probably
States.
my generation will definitely know what it is. I mean, younger people.
Yeah.
No, but
What
the
is it
idea
required
was-
viewing
so
in school or something? Or
no, I think it's just one of who filmed. Who was the director? Anyway, I can't remember. But the premise is it's like a tragic love story kind of thing, and the idea was they're supposed to meet at either Euston or Paddington or King's Cross Station, and she's got a newspaper and he's got a red rose kind of thing, but they miss each other, and that's it. It's it's like this kind of thing going on.
there's an American film, which sounds like it's based
You
on
talking
the
about
same
sliding
premise.
doors?
No, I want to say it's called An Affair to Remember or
And
something
Affair to
like
Remember
that.
might even be these kind of things, right? They're very.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
So yeah, okay, I get it. But I've not seen this. I mean,
my parents' age, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, Brief Encounter, blah blah blah." It's like kind of everybody
Interesting.
knows that film,
Okay. All right. Well, moving on to track 3, I've got a picture here of like a sock hop because this song, "Would You Believe," reminds me of parts of it. I mean, some of it has like weird beep boop computer noise stuff, but the meat or I don't know, the heart of the song to me is just like 50s rock and roll with saxophone, and some
Absolutely.
Chuck Berry type chords, and this great couplet, I guess you could say, "Well, I'm sure I'll love you all my life and in the morning too."
That's exactly what I've written down too.
That's
part of my notes,
fantastic.
so yeah, I mean, I think the previous two songs might be a bit of definitely not fillers. That's not what I mean, but they're maybe setting the way for what's coming next. And also, you've had the kind of the barnstorming kind of openers, and then the kind of bit of weirdness going on with Ladytron and things,
Yeah.
and then we've kind of taken a little dip into something a bit more relaxing, for choice of a better word, or delicate or gentle, and now we're getting back into maybe more what the heart of them as musicians was, what they grew up listening to, that kind of thing. I did write a couple of things down, other than the "I'll sure to love you" in that, because it's a great line. I wrote a laid back tune with a hint of Brian Wilson or the Beach Boys to it.
Yeah.
Something you could dance to. No, what was it? Something you could dance at parties to. It's just a blues in E, right? But in a good way. I mean, wouldn't sound out of place in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but better than that, right? So that was my worthwhile contribution as I'd made a note as I was scribbling some thoughts down.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go to the
It's like a
hop.
homage to the stuff they grew up with, Chuck Berry or whoever it might be,
Yeah,
or in this
absolutely.
case,
Yeah,
Brian
yeah.
Wilson and so on. And it's
Yeah,
great.
there is some Beach Boy type
And if you put on a record at a party,
element
as you would
as
do in
well.
1970, what did we say, 72? Then,
Yes.
you,
Yeah, people
you
would
want to
get
get
up
people
and dance to
dancing, right,
this
in
for
your
sure.
parties.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next one is for me the highlight of side B. I think this track is beautiful and amazing. Um, not high energy like
No.
track 3 or anything on side A, but man, as a ballad, it's just an incredible composition, and it's
Mm.
almost like two songs in one. But let's look at the first part first. Okay, so just as with track 1, it opens with a sample of a cocktail party. Here we get like ocean waves, right?
Mm.
Literal, not just breezes, but like sea waves of the sea, right? So you got this kind of interesting ambient sound opening, and then in free time you've got crooning with and really emotive, not over the top, vibrato laden, plaintive singing. I mean, it's very moving. It's a great vocal performance.
Yeah.
And these amazing lines. Well, okay, there's keyboard, there's oboe, but these amazing lines. We've been running around in our present state, hoping help will come from above, but even angels there made the same mistakes. In love, in love, in love, in love is repeated. Man, that really got me. It still gets me. I've listened to this track many times. Then, so after there are a couple of vocal verses. Then you've got the oboe again, and some amazing guitar, which is actually out of tune, I think, but that discordant quality, like Manzanera is trying to bend the note. It sounds like crying, doesn't it? I mean, it's like expressing perfectly what Ferry has just been singing about. It's so amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to top the way you've described it there. I'll tell you what I've written down. For me, second, I don't know, second favourite. I kind of stopped doing that, but a standout track on the album, that's another way I suppose I could say it. The first half of the song up to about 3:40, because I had a look at the time on it, is really quite exquisite. It's atmospheric, moody, and it could even be a track from 10 or more years in the future from when it was recorded. I got that kind of feeling from it too. There's also a bit of a free-spirited middle. I don't know what middle means here, but the bridge, the middle eight, I'm not sure. A fairy lament.
Interlude is what I call it.
Okay, fine, that'll do.
The herky-jerky interlude.
Right. I wrote a free-spirited middle. There we go. I don't know what I was thinking. A fairy lament and a truly unique-sounding oboe vocal end.
Yeah, well, it's a ring composition, which we'll talk about later, but it ends as it began, right? Like we come back to
it kind of goes full circle on
exactly.
That.
It goes full circle, and we hear the ocean waves again, and then we return to that what you called exquisite vocal part. But okay, so the interlude. I mean, the first time I heard it, it's like, what the fuck is this, man? This is out of place. It's jarring. But then I don't know. After listening 2 or 3 times, it's like, oh yeah, this works. It's kind of like
we say that shouldn't, but it does, right?
It shouldn't, but they just put a little kink in it,
Like, oh,
and I don't know if you noticed, but everything before that is free time, and then the drums and bass come in. There's really no drums before that, and then I think after that what I'm calling the herky-jerky interlude, there's no more drums and bass, and it goes back to free time. Like the ocean waves come in, and then the vocal and the piano, and but no
really
drums and bass.
Quite phenomenal.
If I remember correctly.
Sorry to interrupt. I remember hearing.
Well, am I right about that?
Yeah. I mean,
am I right about that?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I remember, now that I'm looking at the slide here, I remember hearing the Susie and the Banshees version, so that must have been 86, 87, I think it came out. I'm not quite sure. Mid-80s anyway.
Yeah.
I thought, that's wonderfully bonkers. Then going back and hearing the original.
Right. I mean, the original is much more disjointed and experimental and avant rock.
Yeah.
But I will say, Susie's version kicks ass. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But somehow they made the transition less abrupt. You know, it kind of flows.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it flows better.
It sounds like it's been produced. You know, it's like the producers sat down and they've kind of worked out how we're going to make this song still keep its roots in the original, or homage to the original, but give it a bit of a Susie and the Banshees kind of feel to it.
You know, I think it's great. Their cover is fantastic. Yeah. Now, there's also a cover by Paul McCartney's brother, Mike McGear. I read about this. I didn't listen to it, but I'll put that in the show notes. Interesting. And it's produced by Paul, so that's pretty, I don't know, surprising. Like, I didn't know. I wonder, like, surely the Beatles influenced Ferry, but, like, is he close to McCartney on a personal basis or professional basis? I don't know. But that he produced his brother's cover version of this. That's interesting. So I think the lyrics of the herky-jerky interlude are worth noting here. Thought train set in motion. This is really clever. Wheels in and around. Express. Like express train, get it? Express our emotion. Tracks up, then now it says tracks down, that's from the official page, but the way he sings it sounds like cracks down, 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 down. Some very idiosyncratic, weird, you know, psychotic lounge lizard vocal stylings, but
with a dash of
somehow
in there as well.
Yeah. But man, it's to me, this is the standout of side B. This track is such a, I don't know if it's a hidden gem, because it sounds like, you know, a lot of people appreciate it, but
it's really unique sounding the way it's
unique and
composed, arranged.
Beautiful composition. And so, yeah, moving. All right. And then here we are at the end, Bitter's End. Aptly enough, lyrically, this is great. I never thought I'd be a rover. I didn't even look around. But now I know you found another. So will someone please find me? That is great. And how does this Bitter's End begin? With more of the cocktail party, right? So again, there's that. That is at the beginning, right? It starts with that. Or is it in the middle?
Might be in the middle.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that ring composition again. We got the cocktail party from the beginning, here at the end. Wow, it all ties together.
And we're getting some interesting lyrics as well. We've had Potatoes and Cognoscenti in the same album, which is quite good.
And what a way to end it, right? You should make the cognoscenti think. And that's it. It just ends that. What did we just hear? And then there's that chorus of bizarre. How, like, that's perfectly apt, you know? That's exactly what it is. It is bizarre. And you've even got that.
Speaking of Noel Coward, what was this song that I wasn't really a fan of? It was
Mad Dogs and Englishmen.
Yeah, the one we just talked about a moment ago.
Oh,
the slide, I can't remember what it was. The one with Brief Encounter on it anyway.
Right.
Whatever song that was. Yeah, the one I didn't really like.
Oh, Chance Meeting. Chance Meeting,
yeah. So I'd actually written down in my notes here, you've got Ferry doing what sounds like a Noel Coward impression, but with a hint of doo-wop groups like the Ink Spots or the Platters in the background.
Yeah.
You know, it's a kind of interesting mixture of the two, you know, or at least that's the way
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it's kind of like British music hall as a composition and performance. Yeah, that's right. Kind of reminds me of the last track on the Stones, their Satanic Majesty's Request. What's it called? On with the Show. There's also like cocktail party samples.
Maybe it was
and
a generational thing with these guys. I mean, all very kind of. I did have a quote here that I can send you later, but Bryan Ferry told Melody Maker, "Bitter's End is quite serious. There's the ambiguity of the doo-wopping singers in the background, which gives people a certain image, against the words, which are strange and not at all the kind of thing you usually find in that musical context."
So it's bizarre. And, I think there are more castanets in this, but I also hear this. Do you know this instrument? It's called the
looks like a set of nail clippers. What I'm saying,
flexitone. No, it's that thing you shake it and it goes.
Yeah, that one. It makes that kind of.
It's
noise.
called a I looked it up. Flexitone or Fleximetal, I think it is.
Was there not use of mellotron in this album as well? Speaking of kind of general ambient weirdness and stuff.
I think there may be that's mentioned on the Wikipedia page, but I couldn't tell you what track it's on. I don't know.
But yeah, this is a very interesting way to end the album, I think. It kind of closes that chapter one, as it were, kind of really, really quite well. And if you are interested lyrically, I think there might be a kind of misconception that Bryan Ferry was a bit of a poser or the kind of the best looking man in show business. All these kind of stereotypes that may or may not be true. But I think, as we've just talked about for the last hour or so, lyrically, musically, he can handle his own here. I mean,
he can hold his
slouch,
own. Yeah. No.
With the band as well, I have to add. But
very clever
as an artist himself, there's a lot more to it than just a nice quiff and some cigarettes, smoke in the background.
Yeah, it's not all opposed. There's substance behind it, and again, I think that's what separates him from his '80s progeny, right? Like, not that there was no substance at all. I mean, some of them were decent songwriters and musicians and lyricists and so on, but not on his level, I would argue. All right. Well, we have completed our track-by-track analysis. I just wanted to call your attention to this. Talk about remake, remodel. Here is Linda Thompson, ex-wife of Richard Thompson. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what kind of parody is this? I mean, this is amazing. She recently, of course, this is from Wikipedia, but she released an album of her own songs performed by other musicians. So she's got a picture of herself, and the album is called Proxy Music. That is brilliant, man. That is fantastic parody. And so
Richard Thompson also a fine guitar player in his own right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I haven't listened to that, but that's a hilarious album cover. If you're just listening and not looking at the slideshow, it's Linda Thompson at age, probably 70, in the same pose as the young, debutante on the first Roxy
the other Mrs.
music
Jagger. Album.
Yeah, Mick Jagger's sister-in-law or ex-sister-in-law or whatever she is. All right, so what else we got? If you want to research more, I've not read this, but I think I should order it. It's called Remake, Remodel, The Art School Roots of Roxy Music, and it's by Michael Bracewell, whoever he is. You want to read the blurb there? Can you see it?
Ferry planned Roxy Music with rare calculation as the antithesis of rock worthiness. They would, in Bracewell's words, embody suave flippancy and dedicated musicianship, nostalgia and the avant-garde, heterosexual eroticism and ambiguous sexual identity. Derided by many as poseurs, Roxy were an instant success, their constructed glamour offering membership of a vast but exclusive club.
Sounds like a good read. I think that I found like a bio of Ferry on Amazon several years ago, but I never ordered it. This I didn't see, but I think that looks like something I should have sent to me here on the island of Formosa. Also, we can recommend this, what is it, a documentary? Inside Roxy
Yep.
Music, 1972 to 1974. So if you're interested in the early years, that's on YouTube, I think. And so is this, Inductee Insights, Roxy Music, rock and roll. It's from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame channel on YouTube. I'll put these links in the show notes.
I didn't actually watch this because I kind of refused to have anything to do with those.
Yeah, fuck the
Rock
Hall.
It's just all.
Well, it talks about the influence of Bowie, VU, and King Crimson, but it also talks about how, and we discussed this in our text messaging this previous week, but they were a big inspiration for Nile Rodgers and Chic, right? The way,
indeed. Right down to the dinner jacket.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that's if you contributed in some way to the vision of Nile Rodgers, then fair play to you.
Right.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so you also mentioned Velvet Goldmine, not
Very
Velvet
bad
Underground.
film.
I've not seen it, and I don't plan to, but
I've seen it. 96 or something that came out. I mean, it's rubbish.
So some Roxy music is featured in it, or
one
what?
or two tracks, I believe. Yeah, there's a lot of because they couldn't get or at least my understanding was they couldn't get the original artists, or they wouldn't pay for it, whatever it was. So they got people to do covers of it instead, which I suppose might work, but it's absolute dog shit, this film.
Okay, so we'll skip that. But you might want to check out the BBC Sessions,
which is very
Volume
good.
1, 1972.
I did enjoy this. Great performance. And we get to see them in...
Are they with Manzanera or the previous guitarist? I mean, Manzanera's in the photo here, but...
Yeah, I never really checked, to be honest. I just kind of clicked a link.
Right.
Let it did its magic.
So we'll put that in the show notes as well. And now it's time to talk about lessons learned. What do we as songwriters, musicians, producers, and general audiophiles, what do we make of all this? How do we remake and remodel Roxy music? How do we re-Roxy, and why should we? Well, I've got some thoughts on that. I was looking for a Henry James quote on collaboration, like working together as a collective, and I couldn't find that. I'll see if I can find it here somewhere, but this one seemed apt. He says, art lives upon discussion, upon experiment, upon curiosity, upon variety of attempt, upon the exchange of views and the comparison of standpoints. I think that relates to, what this whole Roxy music project,
even if we take it from the art school kind of background, or half of them anyway.
And well, another way to think of it is go big or go home, and let your freak flag fly. We've talked about the latter of those two before. Letting the freak flag fly, which they certainly do. And they do go big, right? Like it's just
they're not hiding behind anything here, it's
go all out and don't hold back. Don't be afraid to try something weird, because it might work out.
What you see is what you get here. I mean, literally, I would say. If you can take a look at them and you thought, I wonder what these sound like if you'd not heard them before.
It looks and sounds like glam.
Of that. I can add a couple of things, Mark.
Sure.
If you like.
Yes, please.
I've made a couple of kind of more structured notes here at this bit. So coming at the same time as Bowie, Bolan, Slade, or even the kind of krautrock influence like Can or Kraftwerk or Tangerine Dream or Neu. I could have went on and on with all these influences, but coming at the similar or same time as those bands and musicians, and also not long after the kind of psychedelia, Roxy took the lead in creating their own unique sound. I mean, all those components, influences, and artistic flair, for choice of a better word, shouldn't work, but it does. It's groovy, it's funky, it's poppy, it's croony, symphonic, as you mentioned earlier, and it's really stood the test of time. And I think just to kind of close it, when you hear a Roxy Music song, you automatically know who it is. They've trademarked that sound. At least as we go through the kind of back catalogue, I would say this is still representative of each album.
It doesn't, I mean, it shouldn't work, but it does work. What makes it work? What holds it all together? Is it the guiding genius of Ferry? Is it the core band members of Ferry, Manzanera, and Mackay? Like, why does it work?
Maybe all buying into his idea, as it were, as a whole, and then, you know, them all really kind of playing their significant parts in creating that sound and that specific thing that either he or maybe Bryan, you know, to a certain extent, were looking for. As we discussed, I would say it's Ferry's band, and I think you have to take into account the time. What was it, 72 we said? So there's a whole load of influences going on there sonically, mystically, creatively. There's a lot of crap music in the pop charts as well at that time, a lot of kind of glammy pop stuff. You were maybe getting a lot of kind of really middle of the road dirge around as well, and this was something new, it was something dynamic, it was something we might have seen bits of before from Psychedelica, or as we talked about earlier, the Brian Wilson effect, or some of those kind of doo-wop songs, or whatever, you know, different influences there. But they're written, performed, recorded, arranged in such a way that that's really what makes it work, I think. You know, that is the genius of it.
Yeah. Well, in terms of techniques, right, I had a couple of ideas. I think there's a lot of repetition variation, which is illustrated by this diagram of robot figures, one after another, but slightly modified each time, you know. And as we talked about, the ring composition, ending as you begin. We saw that with, well, in one song we saw it in Sea Breezes, right? Like we finish as we started, and then the album as a whole does that too. And as for the repetition variation, I mean, that's all music is that to some degree, but I think they were probably quite conscious of that as a technique, and I think it's a good one that works. The last thing I wanted to ask you about is the British element of Roxy music. Okay, I mean, most of my favorite bands are British, but, you know, I don't buy into the whole British patriotic British you know, Albion mythology, right? Like I think more of perfidious Albion in a political sense, but you know, okay, so Roxy music, they don't fetishize the Union Jack like say the Who does or whatever, even though that's parody, but clearly they're a British band, like they sound British, they have British mannerisms and, you know,
quirks for choice of a better word, you know, whether like that's aesthetically or musically.
You would never mistake them for an American band. I guess I could put it that way. Like, for better or worse, I mean, how do we take that? Like, when I hear something like the Battle of Britain, I almost seize up. Like, what are we, like, glorifying? I've not seen the movie. I don't even know what it's about, but it sounds like,
well, it was Hitler's planned invasion, right? That was
okay. So that's what it is.
42.
But is it like patriotic, you know, jingoistic?
Who won the war, Mark? Right?
Well, I know, but I've not. Again, I haven't seen the film, but that kind of thing.
The Battle of Britain might also
cringe.
kind of signify the underdog, because from what I remember, Luftwaffe were outnumbering the British Spitfires in their planes by, I don't know, a shitload. They were just really, really outnumbered. The tides changed, and yeah.
Okay, well, maybe maybe I need to look into that further. But what I'm saying is, I dislike, you know, nationalistic, patriotic kind of celebrations of any sort, and I'm always nervous that I might stumble upon that in, you know, something that I otherwise like, some kind of artistic output that I otherwise appreciate. I mean,
I don't
do
really
you
get any of those
like? I
vibes
know
at
you
all.
have your. Let's just put it this way. I know you have your issues with Brits and British culture as well as a Scotsman. But does any of this like I think probably most of your favorite bands are also British, right? Is that
Yeah,
weird for you in any way because of political differences or I don't know, nationalistic differences?
it's a
What do you
good
think?
point. It might even come down to, just as you mentioned, the Who a moment ago, that the Who were classically working class. Would you say
Mm,
the same about the background of Roxy Music? Brian Ferry's father was a miner, we should say, right?
yes,
So he
right.
definitely didn't come from, the land of luxury or anything like that. But,
Even though he affects this posh attitude.
well, his son's called Merlin, right? So, I mean,
I
I'm not
didn't know
judging
that.
anyone here, Mark. I'm just saying. But yeah, it's a kind
I
of
kind of like that actually, but yeah.
so it's a very apt name if you're going to mean the son of a rock star. But
Mm,
so there might be some of that. There might be a kind of, as we were saying earlier, about the generation of those who were born during the war or shortly after or shortly before. They grew up with all this stuff, and that was part of their fabric and who they were and how they got from the end of the war to where they were as young men and women and teenagers, and they had this new platform to really kind of say what they felt and to show it and to describe it and to play it, as we're talking about musicians.
yeah,
But
okay,
for me, I'm
well.
not really big on the flag. I have to say, I'm kind of, I could.
Well, as I say, I've not seen them fetishize it like the Who does, but
No.
again, the Who is also parodying it, right? Like they're adopting it as a kind of pop art signifier,
Mm.
kind of like I guess some people did the same thing with the American flag or whatever. So
The whole
that's
mod
fine,
thing
but
as well did a lot with the red, white, and blue. What did they call it? The target or
the
I forget.
Target thing, yes, yes. But I mean, I don't know. I'm suspicious of artists who end up like, okay, they're supposed to be anti-establishment or whatever, but at the end of the day, they really want to be accepted by the establishment. They want to become Sir Mick Jagger or Sir Elton John or whatever. I mean, has Ferry been knighted? Is he a Sir or no? Like, okay, so I don't know. It's just something to think about going forward
Mm.
as we explore this very British band's music,
I mean, I
in
would, I would just skip
upcoming
the Sir and
episodes.
just give him a lordship, right? And just he would just be Lord Ryan Ferry, and he could wear capes and do all sorts of kind of mad arty. Not really.
Okay, well, we'll maybe discuss this British element of their output later. But yeah, this has been the first episode of Re-Roxy. Let me just close out of this. This is going to be posted on my Substack. That's Mark Will Write, WRITE.substack.com. The video version will be on YouTube. Mark Will Write, WRITE. So I'll close that. Oops, did that close? Yeah.
Yep.
So here we are. Yeah. This has been episode 1 of the Re-Roxy series, Guitar and Pen remakes, remodels Roxy music. So we listened to the first album today. I call it the debut or the debutante. Did I say 8 earlier? I think
I
it's
think it's
actually
8,
9,
yeah.
right? Is it 8 or
I
9?
think it's
So
8.
yeah, okay, right. So 2
I think it goes up
with
to
Eno,
1982 or 83.
2 with Eno, and then what? Stranded, Country Life,
It's
Siren,
like 8 albums in 10 years. It's quite prolific, we could say.
Manifesto, Flesh and Blood, and then of course Avalon. So yeah, I
Avalon,
think
yeah.
it is 8. Okay, I was right. All right. Anyway, this has been episode 1. And next up will be the second and last album to feature Beep Boop impresario Brian Eno. He left after that. We didn't talk about Eno's contribution. Overall, does he add to Roxy music? Does he detract, or is it just neutral? Or is it track by track.
No, I
we
think
have
he
to
definitely
consider.
adds to it.
Okay.
I think you can hear
I'm not
it,
going
you
to
can feel
disagree.
it. When you see the performances, he's definitely there. He's definitely twiddling knobs and general tomfoolery and wizardry, looking a bit, spaceman-like in the background there. But no, I would say maybe we talk more about it after we listen to the second album.
Okay, fair enough. We'll do that. Okay, thanks everyone for bearing with us as we struggled with technical issues, but I think we got those sorted. And we'll see you next time for episode 2 of Re-Roxy when we discuss For Your Pleasure. Until then, farewell.